Hey, what up? I'm Ari Temkin, and this is Showtime on Phantom, putting you at the center of the Dallas sports discussion. Cowboys win! Cowboys win! Yay! Let's celebrate right here on Showtime today. And we'll get this thing rocking and rolling here in a moment. So shout out to everybody watching across Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Hit the share button. Hit the thumbs up button. Shout out to Pollo Campero, our show sponsor. And to find a Pollo Campero and enjoy this delicious food, you see right here, go click on the link in the description here, and you can find a link to find the nearest location by you. Multiple locations for Pollo Campero in Dallas, Houston, throughout Texas, California, Florida, Arkansas, on and on and on. I don't know why those are the three states I always name, but that's just how it goes, I suppose. All right, Ty Shelton, Robert Anchetta, Joe Tranchina, Philip Nichols, Michael Lafferty, G. Garcia, all in the house. What up, what up? Neil Favre also. What's going on, everybody? If you have not yet already, hit the share button. Let's get this thing rolling. I'll start this show here momentarily, but we're going to be discussing the Cowboys' ginormous victory over the Atlanta Falcons yesterday. A major surprise for many reasons, and now perhaps the Cowboys are thrust as the favorites to win the NFC East. Amazing how things can change so damn quickly in the National Football League. How about them? There you go. All right, hold on. I'm just going to go ahead and share this to a few places. If you would be so kind and do the same thing, that'd be fantastic. Other than that, this is a short week. It's crazy to think, normally I sort of break down my week consistently. I do certain things on certain days, getting ready for the week, for the pregame show for the Dallas Cowboys, which I do each and every week on 105 through the Fan and across the Dallas Cowboys radio network. This week's a bit different, though, because my preparation's got to be moved up a little bit because obviously they're going to play a game on Thursday. So quick turnaround for the Cowboys, which actually will benefit them for a couple of reasons, which we'll get into here. So obviously quick turnaround here for the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. And obviously the Redskins lost, which opened up the door for the Cowboys to now take control of the division on Thursday at Thanksgiving, but they didn't just lose the game. They lost Alex Smith, and so now they're looking at Colt McCoy, which now makes the Cowboys basically the favorites in the NFC East, as amazing as that is. Patrick Kahn in the house, Chris Bennett. Chris Bennett says Colt McCoy beat them the last time he played there. That was January of 2016. So that was quite some time ago. Yeah, Philip Nichols, 3 years ago. It's technically 2 years ago since it was already in January of 2016, but it was the 2015 season. And at any rate, it's the same difference here. This is a different team. Obviously, Colt McCoy is a different player. The Cowboys, the Redskins this season are basically like the champions of conservative football. They play defense, they run the ball well, and they don't turn it over. So that was the recipe for winning the 6 games they've won so far this year. So it's not like they were just blowing teams away with great talent. They've Adrian Peterson at running back, Colt McCoy at quarterback now. It's. I wouldn't say that Colt McCoy went in there and beat them. It's a different set of circumstances. But I suppose he could. He won a state championship in AT&T Stadium. He won the Big 12 championship in AT&T Stadium. So why can't he win another game at AT&T Stadium? All right. Let's start with, hi, everybody. I'm Ari Temkin. You can catch me on the Dallas Cowboys pre- and post-game show on 105 through the Fan and across the Dallas Cowboys radio network. You can also catch me streaming live every day, noon o'clock, noon central, right here on Phantom, putting you at the center of the Dallas sports discussion. A shout out to all of those who are part of this community that stream the show each and every day. Can't do it without you. So thank you to those of you that are part of this community, Showtimers, that stream the show each and every day. If this is your first time, nice to meet you, and hopefully you will come back again and again and be a part of this community. I will also shout out the various pages we are broadcasting across as we move across the show today. But yeah, I mean, the Cowboys with that humongous victory yesterday, they've now won 2 straight on the road after starting 0-4 on the road this season. They basically lost to Tennessee on Monday Night Football to fall to 3-5, and since then have rattled off now 2 straight victories and seemingly improbable victories after they lose to the Titans, right? I mean, they lose to the Titans and it looks like, man, they've got to go to Philly and then Atlanta in back-to-back weeks. So they do that and they win both of those games. Obviously a huge turnaround for a team that looked dead in the water at 3-5 against the Tennessee Titans on Monday Night Football, the last home game they played. So now they come back home with a completely different set of circumstances to take the division lead. All they have to do is beat a Washington team that just lost its starting quarterback for the rest of the year, and Alex Smith, who broke his tibia and fibula, and again, so he will be out for the entire season now. So amazing turnaround. For this game in particular, who was your MVP? Last night during the post-game show, the MVP was Zeke. For us, Zeke had 30 touches, I should say, 7 receptions, 23 carries, 30 touches, the most he's had in a game this season. By the way, the Cowboys are 4-1 this season when Zeke Elliott has at least 25 touches. 4-1. Obviously, they are then 1-4 when he doesn't have at least 25 touches. So that's an important statistic. They've also given him at least 25 touches in 2 of the 3 games since Amari Cooper came on board. So they're obviously more confident in their ability to run the football with Zeke Elliott, with a guy like Amari Cooper on the outside. Cooper's production wasn't exactly there this week, but I think some of the production you can give, some of the production for Zeke, you can certainly put on the plate of Amari Cooper and, in being a legitimate threat on the outside that keeps defenses honest to a certain degree. But who do you think was the MVP of this game? You can make an argument for Zeke. I certainly, on the post-game show, tried to make the argument for Leighton Vander Esch, who was coming off a Defensive Player of the Week performance last week, had another great week this week. There are a lot of options for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Darius Leonard for the Indianapolis Colts, certainly one of them. But, man, it's tough to look and survey the landscape of rookie defensive players in the league, and I immediately think of Leighton Vander Esch as being the Rookie of the Year right now. I don't think that's an understatement. I think it very well could be that Leighton Vander Esch right now is the offensive or defensive Rookie of the Year. He's just been that good, that dynamic. Eight tackles again yesterday, had the interception, but you could argue that the biggest play of the game was the pass deflected on 3rd and 2 from the 3-yard line. The Falcons had a 3rd and 2 from the Cowboys 3, right at the doorstep of scoring a touchdown. A explosive offense that averages 32 points per game at home. And Leighton Vander Esch defended the ball, knocked it away on a 3rd and 2 pass to Austin Hooper. That was great. So was the interception, which kind of fell into his lap. But again, I think you get credit for, and should get credit for, being in the right spot and making plays, because that's what good players do. So Vander Esch, you could argue, was the MVP of this game. He's, in my opinion, the Defensive Rookie of the Year right now, and it's not even that close. And then, of course, you can also say that the defense was the MVP of this game. I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence is going to be the highest paid defensive player in the league after this season when his contract is up. Khalil Mack just got a huge deal. DeMarcus Lawrence is going to exceed that. I'm not saying that DeMarcus Lawrence is a better player than Khalil Mack, because if you watched Sunday Night Football last night, you might think that's not the case, but I digress. He's just the next guy up, so that's kind of the way this thing works. If you're explosive and you're a one-man wrecking crew like DeMarcus Lawrence is, you're the next guy up, you're going to get paid the most money, so he's going to get paid buku bucks this offseason, DeMarcus Lawrence, and he's going to be worth it because he's just a beast. Had a 1.5 sacks in this game, and especially early on, he really set the tone and the tempo for this defense overall to have the kind of performance that this defense ended up having. Really a tremendous performance for this defense when you think of this is an offense that was averaging 32 points per game at home coming in. and they held them under 20 points in this game, something I did not think what they would do. They certainly did. And, I think this was the most impressive win for the Dallas Cowboys this season because the defense has been the consistency all year with this football team. Well, this was the best performance by this defense, given who they were playing, given the circumstances, given all that. This was the best performance by the defense. That's why I think this was the best performance for the Cowboys. This was a game where we were searching for some consistency for this football team, and we got it. We got some consistency on offense with this team, and obviously the defense was just incredible. What are your thoughts, comments? So I just made a case basically that all three were the MVP of the game. Ultimately, it was Zeke, in my opinion. Because as good as the defense played, they needed Zeke's 201 all-purpose yards to win this football game to get the points. 2 drives he absolutely took over that won this game for them. Their first touchdown drive in the third quarter, which led to a Dak Prescott rushing touchdown, but 11 of the 14 plays on that drive went to Zeke Elliott. 11 of 14 plays were either runs or passes to Zeke Elliott. And then the ensuing touchdown after the Leighton Vander Esch interception was a 2-play drive, went 31 yards, and that was Zeke Elliott, all 2 plays and 31 yards that gave them pay dirt on that play. So you look at 2 drives, the only 2 touchdowns scored by the Cowboys in this football game, and Zeke Elliott touched the ball on 13 of the 16 plays they had. Think about that. 11 of 14 and then 2 for 2. So 13 of 16, 2 scoring drives, 2 touchdown drives. I just don't think that's a coincidence in any capacity whatsoever. Let's see here. Jeremy Davis in the house. What up, Jeremy Davis? How are you, man? Kerry Teagle says defense played well, being we were very thin on the defensive line. Yeah, that's right. Antoine Woods didn't play because of the concussion. They were without Taco Charlton, which I don't know if that hurts you or what, but they were without him. Obviously, David Irving. I wouldn't expect to see Taco or David Irving this week either. Maybe Antoine Woods is able to get out of concussion protocol and play Thursday, but I'd imagine they're going to be shorthanded on the defensive line again Thursday when they play the Washington Redskins. Michael Lafferty says Zeke looks like he's getting his full speed back. Doesn't look like himself prior. Yeah, maybe. It could be. I'm not entirely sure about that, but perhaps. We are also broadcasting on the Dallas Cowboys Americas team page. Shout out to you, and I'll get to your comments here in a moment. Also broadcasting on the Cowboys Nation page. Columbus Jones says, what's up? What's up, Columbus? How are you? And I will also get to YouTube as well. I'm Ari Temkin, broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. So I will try to address all the comments across all these different platforms as soon as I possibly can. That is what I say to you. However, what I will say is if it's not fast enough, if you'd like me to answer and address your questions quicker, I understand that. Comment on the Phantom page at facebook.com/WatchPhantom. That would be the quickest way to have your comments heard and read on air. Zach Rosenberg says, is Jason Garrett responsible for the turnaround? Well, I mean, it's hard not to think that it's hard not to give him some credit for it, right? I mean, if he's credited with the failures to get them to 3-5, then certainly he should get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to the successful turnaround. And I argued last week, look, say whatever you will about Jason Garrett, and I've been critical of him and as critical as anybody else, but this team never quits on him, and last week's game was indicative of that. Well, that's coaching, that's Garrett, that certainly is credible. Now, I know that there are other Cowboys fans that are somewhat disappointed in the way the last couple of weeks have gone because they want to see Jason Garrett gone. So I know that there's Cowboys fans, perhaps some of you even watching right now, that are thinking that the Cowboys winning 2 straight games and now being in position to win the division is fool's gold because what it means is Jason Garrett's going to keep his job, which I'm not willing to say that I'm there with you on consciously rooting against this football team for that, but I certainly understand, like, if this guy has a fatal flaw as a head coach, which is the inability to evolve and adjust within a game and game to game, like, that's a fatal flaw in the playoffs. No question about that. Let's see here. Keep your comments coming. I will get to them. John Martin wants to know my score prediction for the game on Thursday. That I will give to you. I'll give that to you Wednesday. There will be no show on Thursday. It's Thanksgiving, and also I'll be on the pregame show at the time. But you will get some insight from the stadium before from me that I'll post on Thursday. So I'll give you my official prediction for this football game on Wednesday. But spoiler alert, I'm going to have the Cowboys winning this game. What else? Daniel Griffith says, "Hope you are. How did you feel about the shoot on Heath?" Not really sure what you're asking there. Hector Cano says the addition of Colombo as offensive line coach has paid off for Zeke. Certainly looks like it. And I was just listening to Stephen Jones, son of Jerry, on 105.3 The Fan. He was on today. He is each and every Monday on the G-Bag Nation. And so they were asking him about, the changeover to Colombo. And, Stephen Jones was quick to praise Paul Alexander and basically say, well, maybe he wasn't the right fit for us, but he certainly did some positive things. I mean, he certainly seems like the worst positional coach in the history of the Dallas Cowboys based on his track record. But there's no question that the switchover to Mark Colombo, to going back to some of the things that made them successful initially, has been a major reason for why Tyron Smith has been playing better, why Lyle Collins has been playing better, why their offensive line has been playing better as a whole. Xavier Su'a-Filo. So, I mean, they've obviously played considerably better, and some of that success has to be attributed to the switchover to Mark Colombo. Tony Enriquez says prayers up for Gallup. Yeah, if you didn't hear, so on the postgame show last night, we heard something about a tragedy that had occurred, but we didn't know there was a very somber mood apparently in the Cowboys locker room after the win, something is not traditional after a big win like the Cowboys had. But the rationale for that, the reason behind that was because Michael Gallup learned, as did the team, that his brother had committed suicide. So obviously prayers for him and his family. It's awful news, and I'm not really sure, what happened, how it was delivered, that sort of thing. But Michael Gallup is from Georgia, so perhaps being closer to family got him in line with that news. Alex Hernandez says O-line was legit Sunday. Dakota Stiegel in the house says, hey everyone, what's going on? Joe Deasy tagging people. I see you there, brother. There you go. Let's see here. Jesse Murphy says, thinks Su'a-Filo gets the start at left guard the rest of the year till Williams bulks up. It's a good question. My answer right now is no, but try me again in a few days and I might have a different answer for you. The thing is, they're trying to develop him at left guard, and so you might be saying, well, give him time to bulk up in the weight room and get his sort of body up to speed. But, you're not going to learn anything playing the position for left guard by not playing and by being in the weight room. So, I would think for them to continue to develop Connor Williams, which is the idea, they'd put him back at left guard. And the hope is that the switch over to Colombo will prove fruitful. But, again, I think Connor Williams' poor play has been overstated because he's had a certain amount of snaps that have looked bad. But, 80 to 90% of his snaps have been really good. So that's the difference, all right? Let's see here. What else do we have? So asking you right now, and I've got another topic to get into, which is the chances the Cowboys get to the playoffs here, and now, what kind of belief we have in that happening. But make sure to hit the share button, post your comments, and of course give me the thumbs up if you think Zeke was the MVP, Leighton Vander Esch if you think Leighton Vander Esch was the MVP, and you can also then give the laughing emoji if you think it was the defense. But look, I think Zeke was the MVP because the defense played so well and obviously held a high-powered offense in check, but they needed Zeke and all of the production he gave to win this football game by putting up the points that he did. He was a one-man wrecking crew, and he had 30 touches, 201 yards, an average of basically 7 yards a touch. It was obvious that he was working with him. This was a Falcons defense that they should have put more points on. That's the one sort of negative to this game, that if you want to sort of nitpick wins, the Falcons defense had been giving up 414 yards per game to offenses this year on average, 414. Cowboys did not have a humongous offensive performance close to 414 yards per game, and also the passing numbers. Their passing numbers, I want to say the Cowboys were under 200 yards passing or right at 200 yards passing, and on average the Falcons are giving up, 400 yards passing. So, the Falcons defense, the Cowboys, you could argue, certainly did not give up enough against them. The Cowboys offense did not do enough against a Falcons defense that's very beatable. I couldn't, figure out what was more surprising, right? Like that the Cowboys couldn't score more on this Falcons defense, or that the Falcons couldn't score more on the Cowboys defense. Now, the Cowboys defense is obviously good and legit, but I still figured that on their home fields, where they've been so good, and they're scoring 32 points a game against good defenses, that they'd be able to put some points on the board, and they obviously struggled to do that. Ray Pierce in the house says, hey, Ari Temkin. Hey, Ray, how are you? Corey Miller says, Zeke could get MVP every game for being Zeke. I'm going LVE. But actually, LVE was the MVP last game for me, and certainly on the post-game show. So, I just think, the defense obviously played well and was one of the biggest factors for the Cowboys winning this football game. But they don't win unless they put the points on the board that are all attributed to Zeke. He was basically their entire offense. They made a few plays in the passing game that were there to be made when they had to make it. Obviously, Cole Beasley, getting them in a field goal range down the stretch of that football game when it was tied at 19. But, Beasley dropped in a touchdown early in the game. You didn't exactly have the greatest game from your receiving core, so it was Zeke Elliott that basically carried this offense into the end zone and got it going. Sam Torres says, can Dallas go 10-6? I think that has to be the expectation for this team to be a viable playoff team, right? You could basically only lose one more from here on out, and I don't think that's completely unreasonable. The Colts, though, that's when you look at their schedule. Obviously, the Saints are the one team where you're like, well, maybe they lose that game, right? Because the Saints are just ridiculous. So now you sort of look at the rest of their schedule. They've got obviously the Redskins on Thanksgiving. I think that's a win. They have the Saints the following Thursday. That could be a loss. And then they have the Eagles at home, the Colts on the road, Buccaneers and Giants. So there's two games I think they could potentially lose, and that would be the Saints and Colts. And I would say the difference between 10-6 and 9-7, the way that the Redskins now look, it's not unreasonable to think they can go 9-7 to win the division, but I don't know that there'd be much enthusiasm for this team and their ability to win playoff games if they do end up going 9-7. So, 10-6 probably inspires a lot more confidence than going 9-7. Daniel Griffith says, Ari, what do we think about our kicker? It's a great question, and certainly in the back of the Cowboys' minds, they have to be thinking about, potentially looking at getting a new kicker and working out other kickers. Brett Maher has now missed at least one kick in 4 straight games. He missed an extra point that obviously almost proved costly, but he did, however, come back and hit 2 kicks after that. He hit an extra point after, and then hit the game winner, obviously, from 42. So that bought him at least this week, and obviously it's a short week, so they probably weren't going to make a change regardless. But yeah, it is certainly something to monitor and watch for. I'll say this. If he misses another kick against Washington, they're going to bring in kickers next week to try out. Diana Lopez says, yes, Ari, I said the same thing. Danny Easley says, I still hate that he's running the ball on first down every drive instead of play action. When we do run it, we excel. Other than the Beasley drop, shake my head. Sure. I haven't had a chance to look at the All-22 yet. I do have the video of the Cowboys, the 30 touches for Zeke Elliott, which you can find on Phantom a little bit later on. I don't know that it's fair to say they ran the ball on first down every time. They tried to mix up pass and run. Perhaps the play calling wasn't as good as it was against Philadelphia, but it was obviously good enough for them to win. But to that point, again, it's important to note, they did not. The offense looked good, but not as good as it should have looked against a Falcons defense that's basically in the bottom of every statistical category. Let's see here. Corey Miller says he's like an 86%, I think. I'm not extremely worried, but something to watch. Yeah, but it is, that's the thing is, with kicking, you sort of have to be around 100%. So, anything below 90%, and now you're in replaceable territory, and that's the nature of the beast. Is it fair? You hit 86% of your kicks. That should be pretty good, but it's probably not good enough, quite frankly. That's the problem with kicking. You have to basically be 100%. And if you're not, you've got to be pretty close to 100% in order to be reliable and to keep your job. And, the big thing is there were so many nerves about that final kick from 42 yards. If he didn't hit it, then they'd be looking for a new kicker today. But obviously he did hit it. It was a big hit, and it won the game for them. And it should give him some confidence moving forward, because for a kicker, all they have is their confidence. Let's see here. What else we got? Anthony Donaldson says we're beating the Saints. Everyone will be shocked. I won't. The next day it will be excuses. So Anthony Donaldson, you'd be surprised to know, I'm sure has the Cowboys finishing 11-5. Right, Anthony? Right, Solar? I'd say Zach Wolchuk in the house. What up, Zach? How are you, man? I would say that 10 is reasonable. 11 is probably really optimistic. 9 is pessimistic. And 8 is pessimistic. So, I mean, the two tough games in the schedule that could be losses would be the Colts and the Colts and the Saints. I mean, man, that Saints offense is rocking. So if the Cowboys defense can stop that Saints offense, then this defense is even better than we thought it was, and we think it's pretty good after this Falcons game. Zach Wolchuk says, so we shouldn't jump off the Titanic just yet. I'm hoping that Miss Jasmine, who called in after the first game of the season telling us not to jump off the Titanic, never jumped off the Titanic either. Omar Bagat in the house. What up, Omar? How are you? Zach Wolchuk, by the way, working with us at 105.3 The Fan, is a part of the team on the pre- and post-game show each and every week. So Zach Wolchuk's the man, doing great work. And I believe, Zach, I heard you on the air this weekend too, if I'm not mistaken. So that's cool as well. Barry Griffith says Skins must play the Eagles twice, at Tennessee and Jacksonville, and at Jacksonville. And the boys, Eagles, must play Skins twice at Rams, Houston, and the boys. I say we win the division. Yeah, I mean, look, and we can switch now if this is the better time to sort of discuss this. So, Barry Griffith, thank you for the transitional. But yeah, I mean, it's hard not to have them as the favorites to win the division now, and maybe less on who these teams have left to play and more on, well, the Eagles just got trounced, and now the Eagles are well behind. What are they, 4-6 now? So, I mean, the Cowboys are already up a game and a half on them, having beaten them already head-to-head. So, I mean, they're not out of it, but certainly it looks like, it's going to be tough for them. And Washington, I mean, you might be looking at the Eagles and Cowboys competing for this division, to be honest, and yet the Eagles still have a tough schedule because they still have to play the Rams. So, the Washington, it's just tough from a standpoint of they just lost Alex Smith, and their entire, the way that they've been built this year is minimize turnovers, don't turn the ball over, run the ball well, play defense. And that recipe worked for them to the tune of 6-3, 6-4. Well, they lose Alex Smith. Now they have to go to Colt McCoy. They're going to work out some quarterbacks this week, but I'm guessing Colt McCoy will get the start. So we'll just see how effective they could be. I mean, it certainly seems like a Big 12 All-Star team they have now with Adrian Peterson and Colt McCoy. Darren Smith says, "What's good, Ari? Waiting to stream my pregame stuff from the Coliseum on Phantom." Well, that's awesome stuff, man. Darren Smith, of course, doing great work covering the Chiefs. So big game tonight. Should be a lot of fun. After the ridiculously bad game of Giants 49ers, the best offensive football teams in the NFL in Kansas City and L.A. Let's see here. What else? Corey Miller says Houston versus Dallas in the Super Bowl. You heard it here first, guys. LOL. Ninja Nut says no chance, Corey. Well, here's my better question, right? Who's more likely to get to the Super Bowl out of those two teams? Anthony Donaldson says, are the Saints ready for us? Hey, Solar's optimistic. They've won 2 straight. It's hard not to buy it, right? But, I mean, they had 51 points in that game and they let up. Now, that's the Eagles' defense. Cowboys have a better defense, but we'll see. The thing is, even in recent NFL history, offenses are so good that even against really good defenses, offenses have still been able to score points. Now, that was why I thought the Falcons would still be able to score points. Now, I picked the Cowboys to win the game, but I thought the Cowboys would have a bigger struggle in trying to stop them, which is why early on, when it's like 6-3, it's like they're just not going to keep this offense down the whole game. Obviously, they did, so we'll see. But again, when I look at that Saints game, to me, it's more about how good the Saints offense is and not necessarily about the Cowboys defense. But obviously, I felt the same way about the Falcons, and that didn't really happen. But I'll say the Saints offense considerably better than the Falcons offense. Daniel Griffith says we've been historically good against good Saints teams. True, but that doesn't really help you this year. It's just seems like a pattern. Let's see here. Will Dez play in the Saints game? Oh, wait. Wow, Zach Rosenberg. Oof. Keith Jones says, Ari, what's your opinion on Linehan? You think he's doing enough to keep his job? Yeah, absolutely. By the way, the Redskins apparently just signed Mark Sanchez. That according to Keith Jones, who just also asked me if I'm buying Scott Linehan. I know that there were reports out that they were going to bring in a handful of guys, E.J. Manuel, Mark Sanchez, a few others. So they have obviously signed Mark Sanchez. I don't think that means anything in terms of who's starting on Sunday. I think it's just for the backup. So it looks like Colt McCoy will be the starter and Mark Sanchez will be the backup, with Adrian Peterson as their running back. Wow, this team seems like a throwback to the decade ago. Sam Torres says, "Let's not overlook the Redskins, guys." Really? Yeah, maybe I'm dismissing the Redskins too quickly, but they have Colt McCoy as their quarterback. Hasn't started a game since 2016, the 2015 season against the Cowboys. I'm just not a believer, at all. So I am going to dismiss the Redskins without their quarterback. It's not like Alex Smith was this game changer by any stretch of the imagination, but let's see if the Cowboys obviously have to win on Thursday, but if they do, then they're in the driver's seat to win this division. And I would say the only team that has a shot would be the Eagles, because the Cowboys obviously play the Eagles again. And, the Eagles are 4-6. With the Cowboys winning on Sunday, it'd be 2.5 back, with 5 to play for the Cowboys, 6 to play for their Eagles. So it'd be tough. So if the Cowboys win on Sunday, on Thursday, then the division's theirs, which is crazy to think about, considering 2 weeks ago, it looked like this team was dead in the water. They had lost 2 straight. They were 3-5. They were going to go on the road for Philadelphia and Atlanta. Looked like nothing was gonna go their way or break their way, and just like that, things switched quickly. And I think it's hard not to look at the acquisition of Amari Cooper as being such a catalyst for the success for this football team this season. It's hard not to look at it. Zeke Elliott has now 500 yards, all-purpose from line of scrimmage. 500 yards from scrimmage, all-purpose. Since Amari Cooper got here, that's 167 per game. He's averaged about 26, 27 touches per game in that same stretch, that 3-game stretch. So he's getting more touches. He's being more effective with those touches. Obviously, Cole Beasley at times is getting different opportunities. It's not everything that they're having success with on offense is attributable to Amari Cooper, but a lot of it is. Ricky Esprit says, hello, Ari. Hello, Ricky. How are you? Corey Miller says, did y'all see his leg get snapped by Watt? Brutal. And Diana Lopez says, yes, Corey, the mother in me was having anxiety. Yeah, I couldn't even watch it. I got skittish just trying to watch it. But you can kind of tell as you're watching it, like Watt sort of like collapses him, and you're like, oh no, don't, his leg, oh no, It was really disgusting. And even crazier, Joe Theismann said it looked just like the same injury. So Joe Theismann's career ended 33 years to the day in a game in which the score was the exact same. Think about that. That's crazy. The final score that day November 18th, 33 years ago, 1985, same exact score when a Washington quarterback had their legs snapped in half. And you could also argue Lawrence Taylor, J.J. Watt. I mean, Watt is, when we look back, going to be looked at as a historically great defensive player. Now, Lawrence Taylor is viewed by many as the greatest defensive player of all time. But, right, I mean, you've got Lawrence Taylor breaking Joe Theismann's leg in half on November 18th, 1985, in a game that finished 23-21. And you have 33 years later, November 18th, 2018, a game that ends 23-21, and it's J.J. Watt that snaps the quarterback's leg in half. Just kind of crazy. David Robles says, we've seen this before. Cowboys only do enough to be a middle-of-the-pack team, and that's enough for Jerry to say we're on the right track. Sure, but I mean, there are a lot of teams that are, the Chicago Bears have basically won like 3 or 4 games every year for the last 4 years. The Bears last night won back-to-back division games for the first time in 6 years. Look at the Raiders. The Raiders were down forever. They built it up a little bit, got to the playoffs, won and done in the playoffs, and now they're a 2-win team that looks disastrous. So I mean, yeah, the Cowboys have been hovering around 8-8 for a long time. They seem to be in the thick of the race every single year. And that might allow Jerry to sell optimism. But, I mean, look, there are a lot of franchises that aren't even there. And I think we should have more confidence in this football team because this was a bad offensive team that had a good defense until they traded for Amari Cooper. And what a savvy, smart move by the Dallas Cowboys front office to make that trade at that time, because they knew that if they brought him in, that it would make Zeke Elliott and the offense that much better. Now, is Dak Prescott the guy? My answer is no, because he had to be better. Dak Prescott was going to be better. That was a given. When you add a legitimate number one wideout to your complement of receivers, you're going to be a better player and you're going to be a better quarterback. That's a given. If not, you're in trouble. So we've seen him be better. The question is he better enough? I mean, look at what they have around him. You've got a legitimate number one wideout that you basically spent a first-round draft pick on in Amari Cooper. You've got Cole Beasley, who's a pretty good slot receiver. You've got Zeke Elliott, who, as I said, all offseason is, for my money, the best running back in the National Football League. You've got a pretty good offensive line. Like, what else do you need in order to be successful? Now, you could argue that he's been successful or successful enough, but, I mean, I still think there are plays being left on the field that he's got to be making, quite frankly. Anthony Donaldson says, Deion's the best defensive player ever to me. That, you can't, Solar. He didn't want to tackle. Deion Sanders, you can't have your best defensive player be a guy that didn't want to tackle. I am willing to argue Lawrence Taylor with anybody. And it's not because I like the Giants. I just think he was vicious. And, I mean, he was good. I mean, and I grew up a Bears fan. So, I mean, Dick Butkus is certainly a name that comes to mind when you think about the great defensive players of all time. Reggie White. I'm not trying to bring up, Eagles and Giants over here, but yeah, Deion didn't want to tackle Solar. Come on. Can't be Deion. give me another Cowboy. That might be the greatest defensive player of all time. David Robles says, I believe Dak can be the right guy if he had a better head coach as well as a better quarterback coach. His footwork isn't there. Yeah, but Randy White. That's Ray Pierce is waiting for somebody to say Randy White. I mean, greatest of all time defensive player. LT by a mile. LT for sure. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's Lawrence Taylor. But, whatever. All right, well, the thing about the Dak, like, the footwork stuff, like, if we see that, then surely Jason Garrett, Kellen Moore, and Scott Linehan see that. I don't think this is an issue of they're not correcting it. I think this is an issue of he's not correcting it. So, I mean, maybe you change coaches and things are different. But like this sort of goes back to what we've been talking about, which is if you're in a situation at your quarterback where you need everything to be perfect, like then you don't have a franchise guy. Then you could draft a guy and plug him in and say you got Amari Cooper, Zeke Elliott, a good offensive line, make it work. And that's the issue here is Dak. Look, and I don't want to make it seem like Dak played a bad game, but we have to expect that Dak Prescott is going to be playing considerably better with Amari Cooper. We have to expect that because if not, then he's even worse than we thought he was. So he clearly is a better player. The question is whether or not this is a guy you could sink a ton of money into. And my answer to that is no. No. Robert Anchetta says Prime is the best cornerback in my opinion. Could be. Ronnie Lott probably in that conversation too, but I wouldn't disagree with Dion. But again, didn't really like to tackle, so there's that. Nathaniel Loco Johnson says put Romo back at his ear, then judge him. The guy that was in his ear his rookie year just got signed by the Washington Redskins. It wasn't Romo for the 1,175th time. Let's see here. Ray Lewis. Jim Beatty says Ray Lewis. How about like the best defensive players of all time that didn't kill a guy category? Can we do that? Because LT's committed some crimes but never killed anybody or drove a getaway car to killing somebody. So there's that. Hollywood Henderson. Solar says, Ari, don't do Romo, ... LOL. Thank you. No, I know. Romo's great. I love Romo. He was not in Dak's ear helping him in 2016. That guy was signed by the Washington Redskins today. I believe his name is Sanchez. Tony Enriquez says, we should just ignore those comments. I guess. But then how would the community grow? And by the way, he did say his name was Loco in his name. So there's that. And we should have known that a guy named Nathaniel P. Loco Johnson was going to be a little loco. What else? I mean, for me, the answer to this question down low, Cowboys win 2 straight. Are they a playoff team? To me, the answer is yes. One, because of the Redskins situation. If Alex Smith doesn't get hurt and they come in at full strength, then this is a legitimate discussion. But obviously they're not, so I'm giving the Cowboys the leg up in beating Washington. The only other team that seems like they've got a shot to win this division will be the Eagles. But at that point, I mean, the Eagles, like, they are so decimated at corner. They were playing the Saints at the absolute worst possible time to be playing the Saints. Because they had, and I saw this during the game, they had 2 corners get injured in game, meaning the only options they had at corner, the Eagles, at one point in that football game last night, the only option they had were guys that were signed 3 weeks ago. So even if we're being nice to the Eagles by putting them in the conversation, like, this is the Cowboys' division to win, which could be bad news to some Cowboys fans that don't want Jason Garrett to be their head coach any longer. But, I mean, it's hard not to think that they're going to win this division. The Redskins have Colt McCoy as their quarterback now and are coming in a game to play the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. So they lose their starter with a short week, having to turn around and play on Thursday. And it's not like they were this great offensive juggernaut to begin with before. So it's not like they have all these great pieces and they just need a quarterback to be a bus driver in this situation. So it's going to be tough. I absolutely think the Cowboys are the favorites to win the NFC East and be in the playoffs. I do. And, I mean, it only hammers home the point of if they don't win this division, if they don't make the playoffs, Jason Garrett's going to be gone. Even more so now because the division's there for the taking. And this team has shown such important improvements the last couple of weeks in that they are more consistent on offense. And obviously their defense has been consistent all year. And they're coming off arguably their best performance of the season. Brian Walker says, Colt McCoy has beaten the Cowboys before. We can't take him lightly. True, but literally 3 years ago. Actually, it was literally 2 years ago, but literally 3 seasons ago. January of 2016. That's the last time Colt McCoy threw a pass in the NFL. Think about that. He didn't throw a pass in 2017. He has not thrown a pass in 2018. Well, actually, he did last week. Jordan Goldschmidt in the house. What up, Jordan Goldschmidt? How are you? Anyway, we can make the playoffs, win a wild card, and still get rid of Garrett Linehan. Probably not, no. Seems unlikely, Sam. Seems unlikely that they could win the division, win a playoff game, and then fire their head coach and offensive coordinator. Because, you could argue that the reason they made the playoffs, won a playoff game, would be because their head coach and offensive coordinator. Jordan Goldschmidt says, Rock Chalk Jayhawk to you, sir. On my Sirius XM radio show this morning, I had the pleasure of interviewing Jeff Long, the Kansas athletic director, after Kansas hired Les Miles as their head football coach on Sunday, which was kind of cool. Diana Lopez says, glad I was able to catch today's show. I'm glad as well. Diana, thank you. Corey Miller, a man can dream. You guys, I have been very critical of Jason Garrett. And you guys that watch this show know that I have, and gals. But if they win the division, then we have to give some credit for them winning the division to the head coach and offensive coordinator. Now, if they win the division and then lose a playoff game, which is very likely because I just don't think that Jason Garrett has the ability to evolve and adapt over the course of a game and within a game, and that's how you win playoff games, then that's a troubling situation because now you're talking about a team that's gone to the playoffs but yet can't seem to win playoff games consistently, which is kind of where Cincinnati is at this point, right? So it'd be very interesting to see how this thing shakes out, but I do know that what I've been saying all year, it's got to be true. If the Cowboys don't make the playoffs, they're going to be looking for a new head coach, and we'll see obviously how it shakes out if they do indeed make the playoffs. Danny Easley says, speaking of Kansas, #Boomer, you should not be proud of that, Danny. They gave up 40 points to my Kansas Jayhawks. This was crazy. Puka Williams, who is a really talented running back for Kansas, and I know we're not talking Kansas, but he mentioned it. The Jayhawks had 324 rushing yards against Oklahoma. Just rushing yards. That was more yardage than Kansas has had on offense all year. So Kansas rushed for more yards than they had total yards in a game all year. So I'm rooting for you guys, Danny, but your defense is terrible. And I've been talking about Lincoln Riley as the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys all season. I think he'd be fantastic. I am very worried, very worried about his ability to hire the right defensive coordinator. It seems like he was asleep when they talked about defense in class that day. 253 yards rushing by Puka. 252, 253, whatever it was. Puka Williams is a stud. Little 5'7" scat back that is going to be dynamic for Kansas for the near future. Anthony Donaldson says it's not Coach Garrett, it's more player execution. And that's Solar. That's what the Cowboys say, right? Like that Stephen Jones, that's what he's been saying. It's what Jerry said yesterday. It's nothing's different. They're just executing now. Okay. I still think here's what happens after a win. A win hides your flaws, a loss enhances your flaws, right? So when a team wins, we overlook the things that went wrong for them in that game that could have been the reason they lost. When they lose, those are the reasons they lost, and those are major flaws, and they're an indictment on the football team. Like, that's what we do each and every week, right? We indict or we praise. But yet, like, there's flaws in a loss, just like there's successes in a loss, and there's successes in a win, just like there's flaws in a win, right? And this game's no different. They had And they overcame mistakes in this football game, and that's a major reason why they won, was the ability to overcome those mistakes. But there are certain things that you can look at within these games, even when they win, that think, well, those things come back and bite you in the future. Kat Burton says Dallas just signed Mark Sanchez to back up Colt. Washington just signed Mark Sanchez to back up Colt. Yeah, I saw that. I thought the Cowboys should have signed Mark Sanchez to back up Dak Prescott. He was the guy that backed up Dak Prescott the year in 2016 when Dak Prescott was good, which everybody knows. So I thought that was the right move. Maybe they brought in Mark Sanchez to provide state secrets on Dak Prescott. Or maybe it's because they needed a quarterback and he was the best of the bad ones that they brought in. And, Colin Kaepernick's not available. Just don't extend Garrett. I can settle for that. Agreed. I don't know. Anything's possible. Anything's possible. Solar says, wow, great breakdown, Ari. I appreciate that, man. I think that's something that we constantly overlook in sports, especially football, because football is a one-week thing. But, I mean, you think about the way that we analyze wins, and it's like, well, this is what they did well, and this is what they did well, and like that overlooks the fact that there are things they didn't do well. And vice versa, right? Like, when they lose, we look at all these things that were the reason for why they lost, and we indict them, and there's no redeeming qualities. You know, and it winning hides your flaws, but that doesn't mean they're not there. They're just hidden. And obviously, losing enhances those flaws or gives you a greater understanding of those flaws. But it's important to note what those flaws are, regardless of win or loss. Ricky Esprit says, no, Ari. Okay. Have I been a bad dog? Edwards Loganville says 9 years of bad player execution. Okay, why didn't you just say that? So who picked the bad players? 9 years. 9 years of bad player execution. Okay, why didn't you just say that? So who? I'm not entirely sure I get your point or any of it, to be honest. I wish I... Oh, no on Sanchez. I mean, you're that married to Cooper Rush or Mike White? I mean, I just, again, if we're grasping for straws here, liked how Mark Sanchez was a good leader in helping Dak Prescott's rookie year. But I'm fine, obviously, doing what they did. I'm still trying to figure out what in God's name Edwards Loganville was talking about and how many Edwards there are. Ralph Garcia says, by winning the division, it's only prolonging the firing of Garrett. That is true, and I do know that there are a lot of Cowboys fans that feel that way, which is crazy, although maybe less crazy, because it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, they can win the division, and that will be exciting, but if they still have Garrett, then they aren't going to win a Super Bowl, because there might be the belief that Jason Garrett is not a coach capable of coaching a team to winning a Super Bowl. Josh Briscoe in the house. What up, JB? How are you? Michael Lafferty says, had to listen to the game on radio. Enjoyed your show after Ari with Jesse. I appreciate you saying that. And also, by the way, Brad Sham's fantastic, so you can definitely check out Brad Sham while the game's going on. But we also do watch parties during the game on Phantom. So check out Dalton Miller and Patrick Kahn and Walt Chisholm. They do great work on those watch parties. So, watch the game, turn the volume down on the game, and then turn Phantom up. Because, look, the NFL, you don't really get home cooking, right? Like, you watch a handful of basketball games, you're going to get local broadcasts. Obviously, the NFL doesn't have local broadcasts, so we are giving you local broadcast with Phantom by giving you watch parties during games with analysis from our guys that know the game, know the teams the best. Obviously, I'm unavailable for those watch parties because I'm in the middle of doing Cowboys pre- and post-game stuff. Brian Walker says, if you make the playoffs and lose the first game, is Garrett gone? I would say no, but maybe. What I would do is different than what the Cowboys will do. But I would say that if they make the playoffs, I'd say Jason Garrett's job is safe. And it probably should be too, to be honest. I'm trying to not let my judgment of Jason Garrett cloud reality, and that is, you make the playoffs, and obviously if they go 9-7 and make the playoffs, like, that's different, right? Because they went 9-7 last year and missed the playoffs. So you go 9-7 this year and make the playoffs, it's almost kind of like, yeah, I don't know if you should probably look at replacing Garrett. But if you go 10-6 and make the playoffs, that probably shouldn't be a fireable offense. Joshua Briscoe says, are you afraid of Colt McCoy? Of course, who isn't? Oh, I can tell you who's not. Ndamukong Suh, when he treated him like a rag doll in the Big 12 championship game years and years ago. All right, I'm Ari Temkin. It's 1 o'clock, meaning my time is up with you all today, but I appreciate you all hanging out, being a part of the show. This is therapy on days where the Cowboys lose, or it's celebratory on days where the Cowboys win. The Cowboys have won 2 straight. They are now the favorites to win the NFC East. It's crazy how much has changed in just 2 weeks, but it has. I'm Ari Temkin. Make sure, of course, to catch me each and every day right here on Phantom at 12 o'clock noon for Showtime on Phantom. And please make sure to check out Pollo Campero. If you like what we're doing here at Phantom, support our sponsors. Support the people that are supporting us and helping us keep the lights on literally here at Phantom. Pollo Campero, locations all throughout the United States. So find the location nearest you. Click on the link in the description. Find a location by you and enjoy this great South American-style cuisine. It's a really, really good fried chicken. I'm not going to lie. I've really enjoyed it. Pollo Campero. I'm Ari Temkin for Phantom. I'll be back tomorrow at noon. But for now, I'm out, everybody. Peace.